Hi, everyone, and welcome. It's great to have all of you with us. This is a new platform for me, so bear with me while I learn how all of this works, but excited to try new things. My name is Jonathan Strauss. I'm the president and CEO of PPPC, and I'd like to welcome you all today to our live CEO lunch, and for some of you, brunch. So thanks, everybody, for being here with us today. Some of you will recall that in May, we hosted our first CEO event. That took place with David Nicholson, the CEO of PCNA, and we had plans before the pandemic to host a series of CEO leadership events across the country in 2020. And like many other things, that got a little derailed. But we're happy to bring another virtual event to you, and we will do more of these virtual events as we get into 2021. So I'm excited to have you join us here today. I want to just update you on a few things, and then we'll get into today's session. To receive your PPAI education points for today's session, I know many of you have been working towards your CAS, MAS, and even MAS Plus this year. You need to fill out the survey that will be sent to you this afternoon. So please make sure you look for that in your email inbox and contact our office if you don't see that by the end of the day today. We're really looking forward to TOPS Plus. TOPS will be back with us in February. It will be a virtual event, very similar to what we did for NatCon, which was a great success for us. Our virtual trade shows using the Sage new Sage trade show platform are working really well. So make sure you mark your calendars for February 2nd and 3rd, 2021. Distributors, you can register now, topsplus.pppc.ca. So make sure you do that and get your colleagues registered to attend as well. And for suppliers, there's still booths available. So reach out to our team, and there's information on the website as well. We already have as many exhibitors registered for TOPS Plus as we had for NatCon, so we know that's going to be a big success. One thing we're doing a little differently for 2021 is we're bringing the PPC Awards, the People and Company Awards, to TOPS. So we will be presenting live virtual ceremony on February 2nd, the People and Company Awards. So join us for that live stream to recognize 2020's most appreciated and successful members, companies, and their staff. We want to celebrate the industry and all we've overcome in the past year at the PPC Awards as part of TOPS Plus Virtual. All distributors who register to attend will be granted access to the show, to the awards, just before the top show opens on February 2nd. And suppliers and multi-lines will also be granted access to be able to view the live stream. So look for details on that. And voting will open on January 5th. So make sure you're registered. Make sure you're ready and looking for that email on January 5th to be able to vote for the PPC Awards, for the People and Company Awards. The Product Awards will come in the fall, but look for that. So stay tuned for all of that. And tonight we have a WE event. So if you haven't registered for that, the women of WE look forward to seeing you this evening. And there's information on our website and on our social media about that. So as I said, it was a goal of ours to bring some of the CEO leaders of the promotional products industry together to our members during 2020. And it didn't work out quite as planned, but we're going to finish the year off strong with today's session. I'm excited to have joining us today Chris Anderson, the CEO of HPG, and Marie Kirshenbaum, the COO of Debco. They're here with us today to talk about the ever-changing state of the world of promotional products. It's more important really than ever to stay connected with the industry, to have conversations with peers, and to learn from each other. And so events like today's State of the Industry and updates from Chris and Marie are an important part of that. So I'm excited and pleased that they've agreed to join us today, and I want to thank them for that. What's going to happen? They're going to take us through a presentation. I'm going to step off, and I'm going to come back then for some Q&A at the end. Please use the chat window or the chat box there on YouTube to send us your questions, and I'll moderate that Q&A. And so we'll get to all your questions at the end. Many of you know that everybody in this industry, a lot of people in this industry, spend a ton of time on the road. And that's been a big change this year. And one of those people who spends more time traveling than most others is Sergio Munoz from Debco, the Director of Sales at Debco. I've missed seeing Sergio and many of you on the road over the last year. I saw many of you in February, and it's been a long year since we finished up our TOPS tour in February. So I've asked Sergio to jump in here so that Sergio can say hello to everybody, and to help me to introduce for us formerly Chris and Marie. He knows them far better than I do, and I thought it'd be a great chance to bring Sergio into the conversation. So Sergio, if you're there you are, Sergio.
Hi, Jonathan.
Dressed to the nines as always. So Sergio, I'm going to hand things over to you and ask you to formally introduce your colleagues, Chris and Marie, and then we'll all be back together a little later in the session.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And you know what? I've never missed sore feet from trade shows like I have this year. So thank you. And thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate your time. I hope you're sitting in front of a yummy, nutritious lunch and you're enjoying it. Now, I have the privilege and the honor of introducing two titans in our industry. Both of these leaders, I truly look at them as mentors. I value their opinion and insight, and they've both led our company through one of the toughest working times I've ever experienced. With that, with no further ado, I want to introduce you to Marie Kirshenbaum, the COO of Debco, and Chris Anderson, the CEO of HPG. I am truly honored to be on screen with you guys, so thank you so much for giving us a bit of your time. I pass it over to you.
Thanks, Sergio.
Thanks, Sergio. So I know that many of you may be wondering or have thought about what's the relationship between HPG and Debco, parent company versus subsidiary and so on. So just give you a little bit of insight. All of the HPG companies have common ground in that they are all or were all family owned businesses built on family values. Some of them have long history, such as Hub, formerly Hub Pen and Debco, and some are newer, younger, such as Audio. Each unique in their own way, yet who share core values, collective experience, and longevity of employees. And all of those give us tremendous depth in so many areas of the business. Debco has really benefited in having a partner in HPG. They are committed to making us better, improving, and taking us to the next level to invest and foster in our growth. They've provided us with expertise, a wider network of resources and support without requiring Debco to alter who we are fundamentally. And I speak of the royal we, of course. There's really a positive synergy between HPG and Debco, the staff in both areas, and we're really looking forward to continue to build the bank of resources and expertise so that we can continue to service and partner with our distributors in the future. So that gives you a little bit of insight in terms of what how Debco and HPG are. They're really it's a great partnership, and we're very happy and pleased with it.
Thanks, Marie, and thanks for the introduction, Sergio. Jonathan, thanks again for having us today. And you have my word that we'll take a rain check for an in-person lunch, brunch, or any other PPPC gathering in the coming months. We're going to start today by talking about what happened to the market during the pandemic. The pandemic, as we all know, has been a huge challenge for all of us to adapt. Here's a screenshot of Debco's 2020 versus 2019 web traffic to show the scale of the drop of interest year over year in the second quarter and how the recovery back to 2019 levels has been. You will see 2020 in orange, 2019 in yellow, and the story is very clear. After a fantastic start to the year for 2020, the bottom fell out in mid-March. And it took until August to see the first positive year-over-year comp. The period of August through October saw more down weeks than up weeks on a year-over-year comp basis, punctuated by a small number of outlier positive comp weeks. However, we've seen a corner recently turn to mid-October, where we saw a marked return to positive comps, and better yet, real signs of strength as traffic returned and even exceeded the record-setting pace we saw at the beginning of 2020, pre-COVID. Referring to industry search engines, we can see some very clear trends and associated market implications. Let's start with the peak, decline, and stabilization of PPE categories. Here is masks from June to October 2020. As you can see, we started with 525,000 mask searches in June, with a midsummer peak of over 800,000 in 1 month. Since that time, it has been a steady decline, with the most recently reported numbers falling below 400,000. For the next example, I'll use a couple of readily at hand visual aids in addition to the much higher production value infographics being provided by HPG's crack video production team. Shout out to Mel D and Ben P. Let's look at the gradual return of core promo categories such as pens. And I'm coming to you today from Hub Pen headquarters in Boston, Massachusetts. So this is the most appropriate of visual aids. We'll compare pens performance with the performance of COVID relevant and COVID essential products, such as this mask. And for those of you that are joining us remotely today, there will be bonus points during the Q&A portion of our program if you can recognize the pattern of this mask. Let me make sure I get it front and center for the camera. So if you can recognize that during the Q&A portion, you win. In the case of pens, which is typically the dominant category, the numbers are currently much smaller than masks. That said, across the board, we're seeing declines in PPE-related categories, once again, such as masks, either partially or wholly offset by the resurgence of core promo categories. As the saying goes, in the end, the pen always defeats the sword, or in this case, the mask. I promise you that's going to be the one and only super lame Chris Anderson joke, but I wouldn't be true to me if I didn't throw one of those out, just as Sergio wouldn't be true to himself if he wasn't wearing that shirt. We'll now look at outlier categories outperforming 2019, such as food gifts and kits, where 2019 is the thin line. You'll see there that in the case of food gifts and kits, COVID has been a counter cyclical relationship where they've actually benefited from the financial end market and societal upheaval that was brought on by COVID. And in the near term at HPG, while we expect PPE to continue to be a major opportunity in Q1 and extending to Q2, we anticipate it's going to then taper from there. I should note that the rapidly growing demand for drop shipping custom kits will also be a big business opportunity in the months and years ahead. Next, we'd like to share our industry 2021 survival guide with real-life 2020 examples and how they can be applied to your business. Today, we'll cover the importance of being adaptable, ever faster, and being bold in your decision-making. So let's start by talking about being adaptable. Like you, HPG is a solutions provider in the promo industry with an ever-changing landscape around it. In a good market, adaptable means more business opportunities. In a challenging market, adaptable can be equated to resiliency and more likely to survive to see better times and once again growing markets. Here are a few ways to be resilient with examples. 2021 tip number 1, broaden your territory. One advantage HPG has over its competitors is 8 production facilities. In a good market, that allows us to flex both scale and reach. In this crisis, when California shut down Orgadio's production, Handstands, based in Salt Lake City, Utah, was able to pick up the slack. As Canada begins or resumes reopening, so should your willingness to expand your customer base and diversify your potential concentration risks. 2021 tip number 2, broaden your expertise. The Best Promotions team, another HPG company's Texas facility, produces coolies in-house in Dallas and Houston. When Texas shut down, it would only allow facilities to be opened if they produced essential goods. So Best did exactly that and pivoted to become so good at it that it became the blank supplier for all other HPG subsidiaries of masks. Since that time, and this is less than a 6-month period, Best went from never producing a mask to having produced and shipped over 3 million and counting. The demand for drop shipping has increased significantly as well, with HPG just extending the group-wide offer for the 3rd straight quarter running. And we're not going to look back on that front. Drop shipping is going to be, again, one of the key winning plays as we look ahead to 2021. And you're going to want to work with partners that can enable you to drop ship to meet your most demanding customer needs. Kitting and food. As outlined in the previously covered search engine data, custom gift packages will be in high demand in 2021. We're expanding offerings and capabilities in 2021 based on the success and learnings from launching the Batch & Bodega brand in the USA in 2020. Stay tuned for the Canada launch of Batch & Bodega. For our 3rd tip on resiliency, I'm going to toss it back to Debco's Director of Sales, your friend, Sergio Munoz.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for that great insight. Now, for us, we had to pivot immediately. We knew right away that we couldn't get back on the road and visit our customers, maintain our market share, and even try to grow our market share. So we had to get online immediately. But that meant learning a whole new set of skills, because presenting virtually, you need a different toolkit than presenting in person. We needed to invest in quality cameras, quality microphones, quality lighting. That way we could live up to our name of quality for both Debco and HPG. And we created a little series called The Scoop. These are Instagram bite-sized videos that are about 30 seconds long. They're quality produced, they're straight to the point, and they're very shareable amongst all of your marketing channels. With this in mind, this is something that you're going to be looking forward to doing with your team, is really expanding your horizons. Like, think about it. Could your enterprise be more adaptable? Could you broaden your services or assortment of offer? Or are there untapped talented members in your team that could really help with these types of virtual presentations? Now, with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Marie for the next big tip. Hey, there you are.
Thanks, Sergio. So part 3, ever faster. So in a good economy, speed is promo currency, and today is no different. In the world that we live in, although very different, speed is still very much wanted, and it will continue to do so and be a sharper competitive edge in. So how do we do that? How do we continue to be ever faster? So one tip is finding partnership. And for example, with Debco and our Now service, that service is unbeatable, but we rely heavily on our shipping partner. So when we reopened, we really wanted to bring back the Now service for our distributors and their end users, and we had to manage that partnership, collaborate with them, really get it to work with some adjustment to get it back online as soon as possible, and we're stronger for it. Another area is in 2019, Debco began producing hub product, as well as by having the closer proximity to customers and end users and not having to deal with border crossing. This made these US brands more competitive in Canada from a price and a speed standpoint. We were able to add many more SKUs with little new product development needed, which at times is a long process. And although it was challenging to set it up, it was nevertheless invaluable, as Best became HPG's mass producer for the continent. And as referenced earlier by Chris, we see PPE rebounding in Q1 next year. The point that Chris touched on very lightly was the creative gifting will beat low-cost giveaways. So as we all know, demand for event giveaways has been greatly reduced, and however, that will slowly return as events return. But in the interim, we need to look at thoughtful and creative gift items of higher perceived value, as well as kits. And those have been quite sought after and will probably continue to be so in 2021. For example, I can give you an example of Batch and Bodega in the US, which is Beacon's product. For Debco, what the Debco team has done here is we took our Black Label by Design and we relaunched it as Black Label Designed. I have, of course, a nice little item here to show you. And how that came about is with its own catalog, and it was curated actually by two of our sales staff, and it was so greatly and well received that we actually had to find some local packaging suppliers to meet the demand. It was something that we really couldn't predict, and they are just so beautiful. And again, we'll see some more of those in the new year. So what ways could your business, I think we all need to think about what ways could your business be faster? other than working with HPG, of course. How could you pitch faster, quote faster, more creatively, and target more efficiently to save valuable time and unlock more business? And how can your vendors and suppliers help you to do that? Chris, what's the next survival guide topic? Being bold, I think.
Next, we are going to talk about being bold and decisive, but I appreciated you touching on the importance of speed. Just like we talked about yesterday in our virtual HPG leadership conference, there are 2 times, now and too late. And so I appreciate the urgency with which Debco has approached the market, and in turn, the urgency with which our supplier partners have done the same thing in this most uncertain and unusual of times. So like you said, we're going to talk next about being bold and decisive. And the COVID crisis proved that those who make difficult decisions the most quickly will thrive instead of merely survive. Whether that be making difficult decisions about reducing overhead or making bold decisions about where to invest, despite the uncertainty of current circumstances. Marie, you've got an example of this from Debco, don't you?
For example, for fortifying our home base, we Debco's new facility pre-COVID, we moved Debco to a 250,000 square foot facility from a 4 smaller, logistically challenged facilities that we had clearly outgrown. This was a huge project that took well over 10 months, but it's an endeavor that I'm so glad that we did, since the pandemic adjustments that had to be made would have been so much more difficult, nearly impossible, had we been in the old facility. And we were able to provide safety for our employees to bring back in a safe environment, with the need of physical distancing. And it also helps with our capacity and our throughput, to name a few. Also, during our shutdown, we didn't let time go to waste. We really took the opportunity to evaluate our processes, create and develop some new ones to see how we could improve our efficiencies. And we were ready to implement those when we returned in June. And I think that has benefit, obviously, Debco and HPG, but also the distributors, in that we're able to do more for them. We've done some really great strides, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're really excited about that. And Sergio, you and your team have been extremely bold and decisive when it comes to taking sales to the virtual world. Tell us about that.
Thank you very much, Marie. And I've had the privilege and honor of working on the HPG virtual event team, and that has really brought an amazing tool set of experience my way. Now, as early as March, we were aggressively reaching out to distributors and saying, listen, join us on our virtual show. We want to show you how great of a company we have. And because we had a well-produced show, well-lit show, well-microphone show. So we rolled that out. We had only done a couple shows, and all of a sudden people were contacting us and saying, hey, listen, you guys have done such a great job with your virtual show. Can you help us with our end user show? We don't want to lose that connection with our customers. So we flipped the script. As you can see on the screen there, we put on the t-shirts of the distributors that wanted us to get out in front and help them with their event show. And that worked out beautifully. Now, there is going to be virtual fatigue in 2021. Virtual meetings will be a little harder to get, but if you can bring it, if you can bring good quality content, especially with virtual events, there's going to be an appetite for that, because we have to continue our industry. Right now, we're writing our industry's comeback story. And I'm telling you, it's going to be virtual probably till the end of Q2, if not into Q3. PPAI, ASI have announced virtual shows, and we're going to continue to produce our quality virtual shows as well. With that, I'll send it back to Marie for a little talk on PPE.
Yes, so PPE will continue to be relevant all year, and we also we'll start seeing some micro trends, and we should look for those. So, for example, in terms of BCG, based in Montreal, which is one of our sister companies, we're one of the first brands in the industry to offer no-touch keychains. Best in Texas produced masks in-house, as Chris mentioned very quickly. Earlier, an HPG, Hub antimicrobial pens. So Debco was able to absorb these SKUs, and we're able to ride the trend with all the new product development having been done for us, which was again, speed and efficiency. So Chris, HPG acquired a new company during this COVID pandemic. And that was certainly a bold move. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that came about?
Absolutely, and this dovetails nicely with our next 2021 tip, and that's to be opportunistic. Hub's recent acquisition of Web Company, based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is an example of just that. Pre-COVID, the negotiations were already underway, but because we're a bold, decisive company, we followed through despite the recession and uncertainty in financial and end markets. Being bold created this serendipitous opportunity that will
Welcome
be a
to
boom
Web
for
Company,
us
a proud member
in
of the HPG
2021.
family. At Web, we're the trusted
with North
source for all your
America-based
USA
in-house manufacturing of high-quality sanitizers, lip balms, and other personal care items. So the question that I asked everybody attending today is, what pre-COVID plans could you make happen and potentially benefit from the pandemic timing? What decision do you miss you had made and can learn from next time? Could you act now on a decision that you've been putting off? Those are all questions that, as the leader of HPG, I introspected with our team. And it was upon the outcome of that introspection that we decided to move ahead boldly with the acquisition of Web. And at the end of the day, it's that old cliche that you miss 100% of the balls that you don't take a swing at. And for HPG, we're playing to win at 2020, 2021 and beyond. And we encourage you to do the same as a distributor partner. We're not going to look ahead to 2021. We all know that we're not out of the woods yet in terms of the COVID pandemic. And 2021 is going to be a unique challenge, but in the spirit of not letting a good crisis go to waste, we continue to evaluate how we could be more adaptable, faster, and more bold. So number one, you can expect and should demand from your suppliers more digital sales tools. In fact, we're investing in more resources into digital tools for our sales teams and yours, such as a video customizer and an industry-first catalog customizer that will be unmatched. Marie?
So you should also continue in look for reliable suppliers. The importance of not dropping the ball has never been more important. We continue to take advantage of our decentralized footprint to get more of our HPG product closer, faster, and more accessible to our Canadian customers. And we will be bringing those in the new year as well. Along with this, we're just diversifying our supply chain to ensure we can ensure strengthening and fortify our reliability. Chris, can you shed some light on our search for more allies?
Absolutely. At HPG, we're always on the lookout for new allies. And in fact, we continue to look at suppliers and even partners that can join our family of brands, as well as service providers that can help alleviate some overhead burden. A lesson that I learned a long time ago and became all the more important and acute in 2020 is that interdependence equals resilience, especially in a time of crisis. And Marie, tell us a little bit more about what it means to have a bias to action.
Well, we'll be ready to adopt new trends. And I think we've shown that since the pandemic started. We are really engaged in staying open-minded in 2021, as the industry will continue to experiment with new approaches. And HPG and Debco are ready for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Marie. And we're going to invite our friend Jonathan to join us and lead the question and answer portion of today's virtual gathering. Likewise, we're going to bring Sergio back as well. But let me caution everyone, when it comes to Sergio, we can't control him. We can only hope to contain him. But most of you joining today already know that about Sergio. Jonathan?
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you all. I've got a long list of questions I've been writing here as you've been going, and I hope we'll hear some from some of the people participating online with us today. Great information, Chris. I really appreciate that. I think, to use your words, your boldness to share some of your internal data and some of those web stats and search stats and that, because I think it really helps all of us to understand where those things are at. So I want to ask you, I hear a lot of discussion about the move to higher price items, the trend that a lot of suppliers and distributors are telling me that their sales, particularly in the last 6 to 8 weeks, have really been to higher priced items. And everybody keeps telling me they can't sell a 10-cent pen, but I think you're suggesting maybe you can sell a 10-cent or a $1 pen. So can you break that down for me? What are you seeing in the world of pens, and how is that changing over the last quarter even?
Well, Jonathan, it's been a lesson in diversity. And at HPG, we believe in diversity at every level because diversity means sustainability in the long run. So as it pertains to our product lineup, we're among the most well-rounded suppliers that we can offer that proverbial 10-cent pen, but we can also offer, say, an Orgadio backpack that has a value of several $100s. By offering that complete lineup, we're positioned to just say yes. And that ability to say yes, regardless of what the customer is looking for, is something that when times are tough, as they have been over the last several months, what our customers are looking for more and more is a solutions provider, not just simply another supplier or distributor who's trying to force their single trick down the throats of an unsuspecting customer. And so what I'll tell you is that diversity of our lineup has certainly manifested its benefit in different ways over the past several months. That there was a time where that 10-cent pen was difficult to sell, and that it was the more premium product, perhaps being drop shipped to multiple locations, that won the day. But we're now seeing a balancing out of the demand profile to where the 10-cent pen is in as hot a demand today as we're seeing some of those more premium items, as there's been a somewhat return to the norm, as evidenced by the data that I shared with you earlier.
Well, good. And by the way, I have no idea. Can you actually buy a 10-cent pen?
You certainly can, although it's becoming an increasingly endangered species. And I'll give you an example here, Jonathan. The pen that I'm holding in my hand, it's a variant of the Hub best-selling Javelina pen. What makes it unique and what makes it COVID relevant, and this is an example of a pivot at HPG in 2020, is that it contains a stylus tip on the end, and so you can use it for a touch-free experience as you're interacting with a flat screen device, but it also contains antimicrobial technology. So it'll protect the pen itself and its surface from potentially being contaminated with microbials. So the bottom line is that even with a product as humble as a pen, you can adapt and adjust to make it relevant regardless of the market circumstances, but also provide a new opportunity for a distributor to meet an end user's emerging and ever-changing needs.
Good. So I appreciate the pen education. I know that it's a mainstay of our industry, just like the mug and the backpack and so many other items that have been around, and I think just keep getting reinvented. So, Chris, you talked about you use the word diversity a lot in a different way than I want to ask you about. A few months after you moved into the new Debco facility, Sergio and Marie, I was able to come over for a tour, and you have a very diverse workforce at Debco, and I'm sure throughout some of your other companies. And one of the things that was pointed out to me was that you also have a lot of multi-generational families in that diverse workforce. So diversity has become more of a topic in the last year, and that's a good thing. We're, I think, all becoming more aware of the need to have diverse workforces and diverse experiences. Can Marie and Sergio, for those of us who know Debco well, can you talk about how you address diversity within Debco, and Chris, maybe across HPG? How are you making sure that you really are as diverse as your customers are and their customers?
Chris, do you want to start?
After you, Marie, why don't you start at
Chris.
the Debco level and I'll take it from there.
Okay, so you're right, Jonathan. Our workforce is definitely diverse. We have, both in the office and in the production and in the warehouse. And it's, we don't really look at that when we're hiring. It's really whether or not staff have the competencies or are willing to work and are engaged. And we are really, I always compare Debco to a mosaic. We all are different, but we all have a common goal in terms of, having a great job and getting the orders out. And we respect one another, and that comes from the top down. So, that's something I'm really proud of. And it adds some variety, and we get to learn about other cultures that we all can take outside in our personal lives. Sergio, do you want to add to that at all, or?
Yeah, just real quickly, I'd just like to add that we're lucky that we're located in the GTA, which is a very multicultural city. So for us, diversity really happens organically because, like, I immigrated to Canada in 1979. I remember going to ESL for the first day, and it was so refreshing to see that I wasn't the only immigrant. I was surrounded by them, and that continued throughout my life in Toronto and then in Northern Ontario. And I've seen that throughout Canada. Like, the more and more I've traveled Canada throughout the years, you're seeing diversity all over our country, which is great. So, I know that we live in one of the best countries in the world, and just seeing the diversity happen before my eyes really just puts a stamp of approval on the whole thing.
Love that story, Sergio.
But having the diversity.
Oh, go ahead, please, Marie.
Go ahead. Just to add to that a little bit, what I was saying is that it's not just the work. We also, we don't take it for granted. So we do a lot of training and with our staff so that there is acceptance. And our core values, our mission statement, all of that from the HPG level, really everyone learns it here. Everybody has to read it, and we discuss it when they start, and we do review it. So, while we have a variety of ethnic backgrounds, we do need to continue to keep that at the forefront. Chris, now,
thank you, Marie, and I'll speak now at the HPG level. We take diversity very seriously, and in fact, our two largest subsidiaries are woman-run. And at an enterprise level, we have a very diverse executive leadership team that is made up of more than 50% female and minority leaders. Beyond just the composition of our team, HPG holds regular company-wide town halls that are translated into French, Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese so that every HPG team member may participate. HPG's been getting kudos on the diversity of voices and faces in our virtual trade shows. We have different ages, genders, ethnicities throughout the show, which was a conscious decision as the diversity of people represents the diversity of our brands and in turn, the diversity of our end users. At the subsidiary level, Best, Hub, Org Audio, and BCG are very different brands, literally spanning the North American continent. So diversity comes naturally to us. The same set of values that unites us is also then what we can point to in terms of the relevant value statements of each brand, and our unified approach is one HPG. Our approach is to work harder on creating greater equality of opportunity for applicants. If we only posted our jobs on one source, say LinkedIn, we wouldn't necessarily reach a diverse talent pool. So we aim to be more proactive about getting our new roles posted in new places. In addition to that, we also seek to hire from within wherever possible. Here in our Braintree, Massachusetts facility, we have a large Chinese workforce with multiple intergenerational stories of a family that started by working on our production line with now second generations working in sales, marketing, and finance. These are the examples of the opportunities that HPG creates every day within the four walls of each of its locations, and it's true to the mission, vision, and values that underlie every decision that we make, diversity and otherwise.
Well, that's a lot of good information, and it sounds like you're ahead of the curve there. And I should share with everybody who's participating with us today that we as an association made a decision in the last few months that we need to look at how to make sure that we as an association are representing the diverse community of Canada, and that we're also keeping our members informed of what they can be doing to understand diversity and really the opportunities that diversity can bring. So we have a new committee that's just gotten underway that one of our former chairs of our board, Heidi Reimer-Epp, is leading. And so that's something we'll be talking about as an association more in the next number of months. So some good insights there, and I know some members of that committee, I'm sure, are participating today. So some good stuff for us, and I'm sure we'll come back to you with some questions there. We've got a question here in the chat that I'll bring to you. As CEOs and leaders in a large and growing company during the pandemic, what were the largest stressors and obstacles you overcame? And looking back, and Chris, maybe I'll direct this to you, what would you do differently?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd like to thank Kate Plummer for posing it. And the answer to that question first, in terms of the largest difficulty that we encountered or stressor, it was the first week of April in 2020 when I had 8 of 9 HPG locations that were forced to close due to local governmental regulations. At that point in time, HPG employed over 1,200 individuals on a full-time basis. And being the CEO of a company that in essence was told it could no longer conduct business was not a page in any management book that I had ever read. So it was certainly an obstacle, but one that I learned a few lessons along the way. And so more than telling you what I wish I would have done differently, I'm in somewhat of an enviable position that I can tell you the lessons that were learned and that were really borne out over time. The first lesson that I learned was to move with alacrity in terms of, once we've recognized what the situation was, to not mince words. Instead, I got out in front of our people. As Sergio and Marie can attest, I held the first of a number of HPG-wide town halls that once again were translated into every dialect and language spoken across our North American and Asian facilities. And as part of those town halls, opened it up to questions and answers afterward, flying live without a net, that I wanted to be as approachable as possible, even in the face of restrictions and barriers to face-to-face communication. In the course of those town halls, the lesson that was learned was clear, early, and direct communication is required when managing through a crisis. I had to announce that in the face of forced closures, that there were going to be temporary layoffs and furloughs, but that those temporary layoffs and furloughs were going to be mitigated by the fact that HPG, by once again moving rapidly, would continue to pay for our American employees both the employee and the employer portion of health insurance benefits. By doing so, we not only proved that we stood by our mission, vision, and values even when faced with an unprecedented and certainly unexpected crisis, but beyond that, we moved rapidly, and by moving rapidly, we were able to preserve the financial ability to do so. What that then created on the back end was an extremely loyal employee base, that our callback rate was nearly 100% in terms of those who we called back to work, answering that call and responding with an emphatic, yes, I'm excited to get back to HPG. Beyond that, the other lessons learned when facing that challenge were to wrap our arms around our customers and partners. We were estranged from those that were our lifeblood in terms of serving end users. As each of you in this virtual meeting know today, HPG does not sell directly to any end users. Instead, we partner with our distributor partners to meet that end user's needs. And with the now gone ability to meet in person and face-to-face with our distributor partners, we had to adapt. That adaptation at the time was something that we didn't know if it would work or not, but we leaned in. We jumped in with both feet in terms of creating virtual tools and the ability to connect, if not physically, then at the very least virtually. And by doing so, we were able to quickly establish a new muscle that we flexed to good effect, and at the end of the day have now been looked to as a solution provider for our distributors, who continue to remain out of sight, but most assuredly not out of mind with their partners.
So Chris and Marie, let me ask you a question, and I'll reverse it for each of you. But Chris, how challenging has it been being responsible for a leadership team in Canada that you haven't been able to physically be with since probably February? And Marie, how has it been reporting up to a management team that you haven't been able to physically be with since February?
Well, I'll defer to Marie to start, and I'll follow up her answer.
Well, it was lovely. It's always lovely to have company and visits from our HPG family. Despite not being able to be here physically, there's communication, just like in sales where we did virtual, we flipped to virtual. I have everyone's phone number and cell number if needed. And if I wanted to see face-to-face, we would do, a Microsoft Teams meeting. I did feel in terms of support, I think that it was always there. It also gave me sort of the opportunity to do my own thing in some ways and to put my stamp on things, whereas because there was no one else to lead the group up here. And I think it was very beneficial for all of us. While the pandemic has been horrible in so many levels, there have been a lot of positive that has come out of that, and it's the engagement on the staff that were here while we were shut down, and also we were so wanting to do everything possible to be able to bring back the staff once we could reopen, and we all had this goal, and we were just put our heads down and did it. And we were supported by HPG, and they gave us I was given the room, and we were all given the room to do that. Chris?
Well, to expand on that, Jonathan, and to look at it through the lens of HPG, what I'll tell you is that the playbook is one that we had to write on the fly, that we had never gone longer than a few weeks without having HPG representation on the ground within Canada, either our Debco subsidiary or our BCG subsidiary. And here we are going on the better part of 9 months without spending time in Canada. It certainly has changed the way that we communicate. But the real key is that it hasn't changed the frequency. That I'm holding in my hand this well-worn phone that it should get a Purple Heart for the duty that it served in 2020. And Marie, for instance, do you recall the Saturday morning, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, that
Yes.
You had an issue that arose? You sent
Yes.
me a text asking if we could talk, and how long did it take on that Saturday morning? I believe I was in the Mountain Time Zone, so it was around
It was
30 or
like
so.
less than 2 minutes. It was instant.
Yeah, and
So responsive.
what I've learned over the course of the last several months in terms of our team is a reminder of the difference between wartime generals and peacetime generals. That a wartime general is one who moves at the speed that the battle requires. And today we're all having to move more rapidly, respond in real time, and at the end of the day, get outside of our comfort zones. Saturday morning, perhaps in the past, would have been a time that I was reflecting, preparing for the week ahead, or at the very least, taking a quick break. But today, we have to maintain ever-present vigilance that if Marie Kirshenbaum reaches out to me at 7:45 my time zone on a Saturday morning, she's going to get an immediate response, because there's a lesson that I learned many years ago that's more apropos than ever, and that's that capitalism never sleeps, and that we have to be more hungry, more available, and more ready to answer the bell than ever before. That goes for both our internal and external constituents. So in the case of being out of sight in Canada, I would say that I've been more present in terms of phone calls, virtual meetings via Microsoft Teams, or other tools than I was even leading up to the crisis, which is critically important. We talked about the need for good communication, and just because you can't make the trip doesn't excuse you from being present in one form or another.
Well, I know even, there's lots to learn from that, because even for those of us that are in the same city, we haven't been seeing each other. And so we've all had to sort of learn that in scale. Sergio, I've got a question for you. your company has learned a lot about digital presentations and digital technology, and you talked about how you've supported some distributor customers in their end user presentations. What tips do you have for distributors who now want to do their own digital presentations, their own virtual events for their customers? What have you learned that even a single operator working from home, what tips do you have for them and even for your bigger customers that you've learned from all these virtual presentations?
Great question. Thank you, Jonathan. First of all, let me just say that I've never felt more connected to my managers at HPG. So distance and travel didn't affect it. Technology bridged that gap immediately, and we felt so supported. Now, when it comes to virtual presentations, we've all sat through those Zoom meetings or Teams meetings where someone forgets to mute themselves or someone's not wearing a shirt or, we've all sat through those, and we know the pain points. Knowing that, it's really our responsibility to bring quality to our customers. What that means, do your research and look around and see what people are doing and look and say, that's exactly what I don't want to do, and that's what I want to do. You need a different set of tools to go virtually. You need a good camera. You don't want people to be able to say, what's he holding up or what's he trying to do? You want people to be able to hear you, so you want good microphones. You need good lighting. That way people can see when you're showing them a product, and you want good relevant content. And the number one thing also is you don't want to take people's time you don't want to use it. You want to make sure that you're only taking up as much time as they possibly can, and really respect their time, because that's one of the things that we've all learned from working from home or working at the office. We're busier than we've ever been. We're leaner than we've ever been. So now you want to respect time and bring quality. Don't book a meeting just to say, hey, how you doing? Make sure you're bringing value to the table. And that would be my number one giveaway. Bring value and quality.
Great. Well, that's all good tips there. And I know we're all looking to get better at these presentations. And I've been learning over the last couple of weeks with your team about Be Live. So this is a good test for us. We're looking at how to make sure we present our awards in February really well. And I know that we're all learning from each other in a lot of ways, all these new technologies that most of us didn't know existed 9-10 months ago. So I've got to ask Marie, I think it was 19 years ago in a different world. I got a call from a guy named Stan Gallen saying, I'm going to be in Winnipeg. I want to come meet you. Does Stan still call and check in on his little baby from time to time?
I haven't spoken to him recently, but I know that staff here have been in touch with him, and he's always available if we need to sort of pick his brain on, do you remember how we did this and whatnot. Also, the Gallen legacy is still present here at Debco. Stan's son, Rob, is our facilities and maintenance manager, and he is a true Gallen, and he's a fantastic team member here. So we do have a little bit of the Gallen here at all times. And of course, Stan's imprint will always be present. So, yep.
So Chris, you're a couple of years now, I think, into really being a big player in the Canadian market. What have you learned are the differences between the Canadian market and the U.S. market? What comes to mind for you in the differences?
Well, some of the key differences that I've noticed right off the bat is that the market itself is far more concentrated in terms of the key players. That in the US, it's a far more fragmented market, where in Canada, you've done a particularly good job of establishing strong relationships among key distributors and key end users that have really fortified the market and make it far easier to bring to market new innovations, new products, new brand launches, because there's already that familiarity, where in the US, it's more transaction by transaction in terms of the long-term loyalty and the overall structure of the market. So it really, in my mind, comes down to the stickiness that the Canadian distributors have created among their end users. And frankly, we could learn a thing or two of that here in the United States.
Good. It's always interesting to learn about those differences, because I think sometimes we think we're the same, and then And I look at, under 100 miles from the U.S. border, and I realize sometimes, and especially this year, realized how different the state of North Dakota is from the province of Manitoba. But it's nice when you can find those lessons to learn, going both ways, right? Like it certainly goes in both directions. I'm sure, Sergio, you've worked with the U.S. market, I know, for a long time, so you probably see that as well. So I want to wrap up. I want to thank you all for your time. It's been fascinating to get to know, frankly, all of you a little better. We all have these brief encounters, and we're always running 100 miles an hour. So it's nice to stop and have these conversations. Lots of good insights. As I said at the beginning of Q&A, I appreciate that you shared some of that internal data. We don't see enough data in this industry. People like to brag about sales, and that's about all they like to talk about in terms of numbers. And those are always gross numbers. So it's nice to see some data points and to be able to see where things are going, see that some of those keystone items, those stable items are back for the industry. I think that's important going forward. So Chris, we'll take you up on that lunch offer sometime next year. We're looking forward to that. The vaccine rollout this week and approval in Canada has been big news. So that's very exciting for all of us, and looking forward to being back on the road. Sergio, hope to see you in the next few months, and Marie, Chris, it's gonna be a little longer, I think, before I get to see you, but It's been great. So thank you so much, and thanks to everybody for joining us, and we will have more of these sessions in the new year. So thank you, everybody. Stay well. Have a great holidays.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Bye, everyone.